I got some bad news. The next Fallout game is likely extremely far away. Like, a safe estimate is actually 5 to 10 years before Bethesda releases another Fallout entry. So that sucks. But on the positive side, modders are even still turning Fallout 4 into the ultimate Fallout game as a great way to kick off 2022. If you're not familiar with what I mean by this one, they are taking some of those features or items from other Fallout games, whether it be New Vegas, Fallout 76, etc., and implementing them into Fallout 4. So you have all of that amazing Fallout content, and Fallout 4 is almost a hub game. And even in this one, we're looking at some things that are not even from Fallout, but from Skyrim. Although before we dive fully into that, we definitely need to give a shout out. A shout out to this channel's Frontline Defense, our one protection against those videos that I personally think wrongfully demonetized. And that is today's video sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends, which you can download totally for free using my link in the description or the QR code on screen right now. Raid recently added a big boy, the Hydra. This thing is a super powered clan boss that basically just is multiple bosses in one. It has a wide variety of different heads, each of them having their own unique gameplay mechanics. It's a nightmare, an absolute disaster to fight against, and it really feels like each time you're getting some different combination or matchup. But you know what? Don't fret, because Raid has over 600 different champions to choose from, and that marks my favorite part with all different kinds of team combinations and unique synergies you can discover. Like, you might be playing, try out a few new champions, and be like, hey, that guy's kind of cool. Then build out and attempt different team combinations around that one different champion. Maybe you'll find yourself dominating other players in the PvP arena, but when you get to the dungeons against some of those terrifying bosses, you'll have to switch things up and try out even different and more unique combinations. And things get even better, because Raid is giving away a super limited edition champion to every player in the game, that being esports legend and Navi superstar Simple. He's totally free for both new and old players in Raid. All you have to do is log in for 7 days between now and January 28th. In addition, Raid has released a bunch of other new champions, a brand new Faction Wars crypt with the Shadowkin, as well as there's a ton of New Year events and tournaments, including a special fusion event. Right now is the best time to get started in Raid, and if you use my link or scan the QR code right here, new players will get some free resources and a free mystery champion straight away. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but trust me, they're pretty awesome. Hit my link and you'll see exactly who you get. You'll find the rewards in your inbox here for the next 30 days. So first and foremost, we have one that fits in really well, but is technically not from another Fallout game, purely speaking, and that is the Tesla Heavy Autocannon. You probably know about the Tesla cannon from other Fallout titles, and even in Fallout 4, it was added in by Creation Club. And what we have here is something that is very clearly heavily inspired by that, and really an different interpretation of that familiar idea. A heavy energy / Tesla themed weapon, but instead of it being shoulder mounted, this one you carry around like most people carry heavy weapons. It looks absolutely amazing. As you're seeing in the background, there is a variety of customization options, but of course where this is going to really shine is when you're actually using this, when you have that extremely powerful and potentially very rapidly firing beam hitting enemies. And this will kind of jump or connect with enemies as you get near them. Visually, it looks really cool and is very satisfying. With some of the customization options, you can have a significantly higher rate of fire. It's kind of hard to tell because you are just getting more static coming out of the end of this thing, but overall, it's just a really cool weapon. Very beautifully implemented, and it actually has one static spawn in the world, so you're going to have to raid a certain armory to get this for yourself, which does feel quite lore friendly. But one that is purely from another Fallout game is the Capital Wasteland hunting rifle, which is going to add in a very, very faithful recreation of the hunting rifle from Fallout 3. And this actually comes as a part of the larger Fallout 3 remake mod. It's yet another standalone release from that project. This is pretty cool because it is a very pure recreation of that weapon. Like, it literally looks exactly the same, of course, just looking way better with the updated engine standards. But even further, it does also have a variety of customization options, some being fun, some being more practical, and it kind of occupies the level list as just an alternate to the traditional hunting rifle, dealing similar damage types, having some of those familiar customization options. But for a lot of you, this might inspire quite a bit of nostalgia, or just in general, you might prefer the visual visual style of this one. It's a very fun one in Fallout 4. I think especially with the combat system in Fallout 4, it's way more fun to use this item in this game compared to Fallout 3 originally. It's really awesome to see these large-scale mod projects providing us with continued content. The full mod didn't come out yet, the full-on remake, but they're still giving us trickles of things along the way, which, speaking of, we also do have the Mojave Cazadores. This also coming from the same author, that actually being a member of the Fallout 3 remake team. You might be like, wait, these are Khazdoors? These are not from Fallout 3? And yeah, that's true, but here they are as a standalone release and implemented into Fallout 4 in all of their horrifyingness. So these things look amazing. These are also a pretty faithful recreation. They will infect the Commonwealth. They will spawn along with stingwings, which if that wasn't horrifying enough, stingwings is probably one of the worst enemies in the game. Now you'll have Khazdoors spawning with them and fighting alongside them. They have a few different variations as you're seeing somewhat in the background, just a regular one, a glowing one, but then also a young one, and by far the most terrifying, a large one. This thing's big. You're gonna have a giant flying insect coming at you that will poison you, and there actually is an anti-venom you can craft for yourself to cancel out that poison as it is impacting you. If you're playing on a higher difficulty or even survival mode, it seems like this is going to be critical if you remember back to the New Vegas days. And overall, I really like this one. On one hand, these guys look awesome, very well implemented into Fallout 4, but even further, there just isn't a lot of creature mods for Fallout 4, and especially not lore-friendly ones, so having yet another one that will fill out that world space, make things feel a bit more custom, even if technically from a lore perspective doesn't make a ton of sense, is still good, and I'm definitely happy to add this one to my load order. And you could even get one as a follower that will gradually grow over time. But then we do have the MP5. You might be like, wait, this is just a modern weapon. Why are you saying this is a part of another? It actually is. The MP5 appeared in Fallout Tactics. A lot of those OG Fallout games had a lot of modern weapons and even had them themed around the real world branding, like the H&K MP5. And well, now you can get a highly customizable version of this in Fallout 4. And you can even customize it to look fairly similar to how it looked in Fallout Tactics if that's what you're after. There's a ton of customization, as I mentioned, but also some unique variants you can find in the world. There's actually some that will fire these laser shots, which is pretty cool. Love seeing twists like that. It does have some unique functionality and features in addition to the basic stuff you're used to. You could actually choose perks on this weapon. The weapon is ported from Modern Warfare with permission, so it not only is well implemented into Fallout 4, but carries over some of those features from the Call of Duty series. So you could apply perks like it having a higher AP refresh, aiming down sights being faster, you having more carry weight, you having a faster reload, better hip fire, and a ton of other choices. It'll spawn in both 10mm and .38 variants, and even depending on which ammo type you are using, you will have a different magazine, which is a pretty cool touch overall. And of the modern firearms to add to Fallout 4, it is nice to have one that at least technically appeared in some Fallout games and does have the familiar wealth of custom sounds, animations, etc., and just looks good. But then we have a pretty massive one that I think a lot of you are going to really like, and that is the equipment and crafting overhaul, technically being the culmination of several other mods into just one mega mod that adds in a ton of functionality. What I'm going to be really focusing on here though is the functionality that mirrors the functionality of other Fallout games, notably Fallout 76. So off the bat, this is actually going to add in a new workbench for everything, and even just a mobile variant of that workbench that you can place down. So basically all of the workbenches in one to a degree, especially with armors and weapons. It does add in the Fallout 76 functionality of outfits somewhat, so you'll be able to have clothing visible and armor invisible. The way this will work is, as you're modifying things at the workbench, you can choose to have your armor piece be visible or not. This is really just an option with armor pieces. This is actually pretty huge, because although it's somewhat tedious to have to do this by hand, not as seamless as just the outfit being atop of things like 76, it still is pretty handy, and most of the time once you find that good set of armor, you stick to it, so you'll just kind of have that on in the background. It also gives you the ability, as you can see, to actually change whether it's appearing as a heavy, medium, or light piece of armor, which is a huge quality of life upgrade. But perhaps even bigger, it also adds in all of the Fallout 76 legendary effects, so those new legendary effects for weapons and armors that were added into Fallout 76, they're now in Fallout 4. You could have these integrated into the world, so as you take down and fight legendary enemies, they will drop these effects, but it also adds in a legendary crafting system around all of these, which does feature multi-star legendary items just like Fallout 76. The system's pretty simple, with two major ways to actually use and create your own legendaries. On one hand, you could just kind of move legendary effects. When you find a legendary weapon dropping from an enemy or something you buy from a vendor, you could just manually remove that legendary effect in the crafting bench, and then you'll have that as a floating effect that you could apply somewhere else. So then you could go and edit a different weapon and actually apply that effect to it. Basically just the same way it works with all the other mods. The much more interesting one that has a lot more flexibility is legendary modules, or as they're known in Fallout 4 now, microchips. The way this will work is now for a 1-star legendary, you can scrap it and gain 1 microchip. You'll have to have certain perks to enable legendary crafting. There'll be magazines you could find in the world to give you these, and then from there, if you have enough microchips and you have the right perk requirement, as you're crafting items, you can now apply your own legendary effects. And some of the good effects are pretty expensive, requiring you to have a fairly high level of the perk as well as actually having a fairly large quantity of microchips, but then you can fully kit out weapons and armors at will. I actually really like the way this system is implemented. I think the perk requirement is a nice touch also, and you technically do have a cap here of up to 5 legendaries on a single item, but actually getting there is going to be pretty expensive, and it's going to require some legwork to get all of the appropriate perks and more specifically find those magazines first. And the system's going to apply to both vanilla and modded weapons, which is also pretty cool. And this mod has a ton of other stuff I'm not talking about, like even just editing weapon attachments on the fly if you have them in your inventory, and a lot of it's modular, so you could turn off some of these systems if you like them or don't like them. So overall, ton of great features, I think extremely well balanced, and it adds in that more interesting legendary crafting system into Fallout 4 in a very similar way to Fallout 76's variant, except this one doesn't have daily caps. Then we do have Commonwealth Fishing, which is basically fishing from Skyrim, but in Fallout 4. If you don't know, with the release of Skyrim Anniversary Edition, Skyrim got a free update where everyone got fishing for free. Well, now with the free mod, you could fish in Fallout 4 also. It's actually really simple. The way this will work is you can craft a fishing rod at a chemistry station along with a fishing outfit that is from Far Harbor. And then from there, once you are about knee deep in water, you can just hit a hotkey to use your fishing rod, which is an aid item, and then you'll go fishing. You could find a wide variety of things, whether it be actual fish. A few different kinds of fish can appear, with some of those being more rare. You could actually just find junk items or even find nothing. Unlike Skyrim system, there is no dedicated areas for this. You just have to be about knee deep in water, so the game registers you are in water. Unfortunately, you can't do this from land. You have to actually be standing in the water for it to work, but overall it's kind of a simple but cool and handy mod, because you can then take these fish to a cooking station and actually cook fish. And on survival mode, this could be really handy to just have it in the back pocket. Fish whenever you need some food or potentially even some junk items. But last but not least, we do have the M84 FlashBang, adding in a flashbang grenade that did appear in one of the New Vegas DLCs. So this one actually has what I would say is much cooler functionality, and it's actually one of the coolest mods we've had for Fallout 4 in a while, because it works like you would expect. Because like you're seeing in the background, this flashbang is a grenade, and when you throw it at enemies, they'll be stunned momentarily, falling down, having to hold their eyes, doing stunned person things that you've seen in hundreds of video games at this point. And if you do fail at throwing this through a doorway or something, it'll also apply to you. It'll play that same animation or give you that on-screen effect depending on how far away you are. It's an incredibly simple mod, but actually a really cool one and a really practical one, especially in survival mode. This has a wide variety of practical uses to basically flash a doorway, then whether it be bullet time, VATS, or just going in by yourself, and it buys you a minute to hopefully take down a bunch of enemies before getting one tap, depending on what difficulty setting you're playing on. So overall, I would actually say probably one of the best mods to come out in 2022 thus far, technically released on January 1st. I know some people view this as a tactical mod, but flashbangs did appear in New Vegas. It is a thing in Fallout to some degree, and overall it does feel very appropriate in this game, despite the fact that at first glance it almost seems like it doesn't fit. But with that, those are a ton of choices you have for some mods to make Fallout 4 the ultimate Fallout game, to improve it overall. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Definitely have a lot more great Fallout 4 content coming, even just in this month. But with that said, as always, again, I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.